Namaste, dear learners, and I'm very happy to have you again on this course of Introduction to Indian Psychology. In our previous lectures, we have been looking at the concept of the self and identity, the spectrum of consciousness and mapping of that consciousness, and then we moved on to the states of consciousness and the ways of knowing. In the previous lesson, we looked at the relationship between adaptation, because we talked of involution and evolution, adaptation being a very important feature of the process of evolution. And alongside that, we looked at the Vedic triad of Satyam, Ritam, Brihat and the concept of Dharma. So we've moved from the states of being to the states of doing. And what are the foundations, or what are the bases for which we should decide what to do and what is the best action to be undertaken? In today's lecture, we are going to be studying this subject a little further. And this is on the concept of Prakriti, Swabhava and Swadharma. We'll also associate it with the ideas of Shreyas and Preyas, what kind of action and decision we need to take in order to experience the best results. So today's lecture overview, it's about introduction and understanding the relationship of the terms of Prakriti, which is the constitutional nature, Swabhava, the psychological disposition, Swadharma, the right action aligned with the self, and finally Shreyas and Preyas, which are the basis of our decision making. We look at some applications and then some reflective exercises, vocabulary and food for thought, as we always do. So what are some ontological assumptions in Indian psychology? First and foremost, as you've seen so far, Indian psychology believes that we don't come as a tabula rasa. We are not a blank page. We've come from a certain background in terms of our ancestry, the sanskaras that we've carried from our family, from the culture, the karmic sanskaras that we've carried. So there's a lot of background to our present existence that determines the flow and the course of our life decisions. So first of all, we are not a blank slate. Secondly, that human action is lawful. What do we mean by that? We mean that basis of our choice is not just random, but there is a prescription because we have come from somewhere and we are going to a particular destination. That destination may be varied, but there is a destination to be reached. And therefore, our actions cannot be at random. They have to follow a certain lawful nature, or they have to follow certain laws in order to enable us to reach our destinations in the best way possible. So therefore, we see that the dharmic life that we've seen earlier, it's grounded in the inner nature primarily and not in the external rules alone. And the basis of action is that it emerges from the constitution of the individual, which is their prakriti. Indian psychology is very clear that actions have consequences. And therefore, what is dharma? It is understanding how our actions can affect inner harmony. Wrong actions are anrita. These cause misalignments and therefore result in distress. Right actions, which are rita, they facilitate alignment and therefore the well-being of the individual. And when we talk of this in Indian psychology, we therefore understand that actions are always related to the cause and effect model. So what is Prakriti? It is our constitutional determinism. We've seen in the Sankhya system that there was a notion of Prakriti, which is the primordial material principle. It is the source of body, mind, senses. It exists independent of the individual will. It also explains the unequal capacities and the differential motivations. Agency begins after recognizing the characteristics of Prakriti. So in this context, we have to recognize that there are two terms of Prakriti that are used here. So Prakriti is used, but in two contexts. In the first context, it is also referring to that Mula Prakriti, which is there, which is playing an important role in determining how we are and who we are. The second Prakriti is closer to the Ayurvedic concept of Prakriti, which is our constitutional nature. What are we consisted of? And that will play an important role in determining who we become and how we act. So one important feature is the concept of the gunas. And what is this concept of the gunas? We have seen already the three that are there, sattva, rajas and tamas. These are dynamic forces. They're mutually interactive and they determine the mental states that fluctuate based on the guna dominance. Gunas also explain the change of states and not just personality labels or traits. But I want to just add here that when you look at the world through the quantum lens, we see that everything is vibratory. We see that there are certain vibrations that are harmonious, which are the sattva, there are certain that are dynamic, which is the rajas, and there are certain vibrations which are completely entangled, and that's the tamasic part of our being. So it is these influences of the vibratory patterns that we incarnate that will determine how we are perceiving reality and how we are also experiencing it, which in turn determines how we choose to act. What is Swabhava, or the psychological patterning? So Swabhava comes from the roots Swa and Bhava. Swa meaning self and Bhava meaning being, feeling, or the nature. It is also the inherent nature of the individual, and it is connected to the innate or inherent disposition. It is our own condition or state of being. Now, one other thing you need to notice is that with Sanskrit, single terms can have multiple meanings, all right? And therefore, one has to be very conscious where one is using which sense. In context of behavior, we see that it determines psychological predisposition. It is also connected to the habitual patterns which are shaped by the Prakriti and the conditioning or the samskaras. And these samskaras, like I mentioned, can come from our own genetic propensity, from the environment, from the family we are born in, from the cultures we are in, everything that can play a role in determining what the samskaras or how we have samskaras and how the samskaras then determine the actions we undertake. It operates automatically, spontaneously, and impulsively. So when we talk of Swabhava, we are referring to this kind of a spontaneous, impulsive, and automatic response or reaction to the world. So a few more things about Swabhava, some of its functions. What does Swabhava determine? It determines the interests, strengths, emotional style, and the division is functional, not hierarchical. The psychological diversity is natural because everybody is conditioned differently, and therefore individual desires also arise from their own unique Swabhava. It is the source of inherent motivation, and any form of forced motivation can cause inner conflict because it doesn't match with your own nature. A little of a comparison here between the concept of Swabhava and personality. So Swabhava is inner disposition, personality trait patterns. Swabhava is dynamic. Personality is relatively stable. Swabhava is very value linked because it is conditioned by the samskaras that you grew up in. And personality is descriptive primarily. Swabhava can be refined, and personality is often a label. What happens with maladjustments when the Swabhava is suppressed? So we see that there is distress that arises when one acts against one's Swabhava. And this also suppresses the natural tendencies and potentially leading to repressions, as we've seen in the school of psychoanalysis. This kind of a suppressed Swabhava can lead to identity confusion, loss of meaning, chronic dissatisfaction. And because there's so much of conflict happening within the individual can feel fatigue as well as anxiety. Moving on to the next idea of Swadharma. What is Swadharma? So we've seen this in the previous lecture that it really reflects the individual's law of being. And this goes beyond just social duty. So Swadharma is one's own duty to the truth of one's being. It is an action that is aligned with the inner law of the individual, the prakriti of the individual, as well as your innate tendency or swabhava. And it is context specific. It is not based on any rule or morality. The society says everybody should do this and therefore you also have to do this. There is this kind of a strange paradox in the Indian context where we are expected to follow the different dharmas, but the highest dharma that we are expected to adhere to is the swadharma of the individual, which overrides all other dharmas at the end of the day. So this is a very interesting paradox of the freedom of the individual to express the essential nature of their own being. And what is the importance of following the swadharma? So this is a verse from the Gita where Sri Krishna says, Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushthitat swadharme nidhanam shreyah paradharmo bhayavaha. So what does he say? Better is one's own law of works or swadharma, though it is itself faulty, than an alien law well wrought out. He says death in one's own law of being is better, and perilous is it to follow an alien law or somebody else's law. So it's better to be true, and again coming back to the idea of authenticity. In order to discover one's authenticity, one has to know who one is and where one is headed. So the call of Indian psychology is to really start discovering this inner self and being true in terms of following its laws in the decisions we make and in the person we are and become. So what are some implications? It says that even imperfect self-aligned action is stabilizing, whereas perfect misaligned action is destabilizing. And therefore, mental peace is important for any kind of external success and internal peace. So we just look at the relationship between Swadharma and role identity. So what is the role identity? That is determined by the social constructs. Swadharma, on the other hand, refers to an existential alignment with our inherent nature. And there is an identity crisis when there is a confusion between these two. What happens when there's a failure in adhering to one's Swadharma? So failure in following one's Swadharma is not equal to moral failure. So there are these different lines that are drawn where morality is something that society imposes on us, whereas Swadharma is something that we have to follow according to our own nature. And learning is part of self-alignment. This also helps to remove toxic perfectionism, where one is always trying to fulfill somebody else's expectation of us. And it's better to be more connected to oneself and also maybe err, but it's better to follow one's own principles and to therefore discover who we are and follow that learning in order to become more and more tuned to our inner being. So Swadharma versus social expectation. We see here that there is a conflict always between the inner calling and external pressures. And in common, this results in the challenges of career choices, the gender roles that we're playing, the academic paths that we choose. And this can also become sometimes the source of anxiety and guilt because society expects something from us and we are feeling something completely different from within. So how do we find the balance here? And just table here to help you understand the chain of being from source to action. So we have from Prakriti, the original creation of primary matter, Swabhava, the own being or own feeling, and Swadharma is own duty or own law. And the scope is universal in Prakriti, individual in Swabhava, and actional in the Swadharma. And the what? So the universal matrix of matter and energy is composed of the three gunas, as we already saw. And the specific, unique mix of the gunas represent who you are. And this is your psychological DNA. And in terms of Swadharma, it is a specific role or action that aligns with your Swabhava. It is a path of least resistance for the soul. In terms of analogy, so the raw clay, it has infinite potential to become anything. And in Swabhava, it is the specific pot. The clay has now been molded into a specific shape, a cup, a bowl, a vase, etc. What is its function? The cup must hold tea, the vase must hold flowers, and the vase tries to hold tea, it will fail. Key questions: what is the world made of? For Swabhava, it is who am I inherently? And for Swadharma, it is what is my purpose? Talking of relationship, Prakriti is the source, Swabhava is the individuation of the source, and Swadharma is the expression of the individual. So looking at Shreyas and Preyas, this is the basis of action. There is an important story here that we must know, and this is the story of Nachiketa with Yamaraja, when Nachiketa in the Kathopanishad is looking at his father, performing a yajna, and he's giving away old cows. So he's very concerned and he asks his father, Father, whom are you giving me to? So the father is very irritated, and finally when he keeps insisting, he says, go to hell or go to Yamaraj. This little boy is very sincere. He says, my father has given me to Yamaraj, I have to go. So he goes there, he waits for 3 days, 3 nights. Yamaraj must have been on a collection of souls. It must have been the time of the corona, something like that. So he has taken time to return, and when he comes back, his ministers tell him that there is a brilliant boy standing there and he's not eaten or done anything for the last 3 days. You better propitiate him by giving him some boons or some blessings. So Yamaraj meets him and says that, you've been waiting so patiently for me, and therefore please ask 3 things. So the first thing that the boy says is that let my father receive me again happily, and also may the purpose of his yajna be fulfilled. So it's a combo pack where he's saying that I want to go back from the world of the dead, and also that his father should recognize him and welcome him, and at the same time that all the negative arisen from the giving of old cows, that must be annulled. So Yamaraj says, no problem, take it. The second one is that Nachiketa asks for the secret of the fire. What are the different fires? And Yamaraja teaches it to him, and he says that henceforth these 5 Pancha Agni Vidya, these 5-fold knowledge of the fire, will be named after you, and calls it the Nachiketa Agni. The third one, he says that, some people say there is something after death, some say there is nothing. You are the best person to tell me because this is your trademark. So can you tell me what happens? So here Yamaraj gets a little worried. He says, no, ask anything else. Even the gods are not worried. So he says, if the gods don't ask, that's the reason why I am asking, and who better can I ask than you? So then Yamaraj answers, tells him that no, he still tries to dissuade him. He says, I'll give you the best cars, the best of everything, the most beautiful women, live as long as you want, but don't ask this question. The little boy says, the very fact that you're offering all those to me means that there is a shelf life to them. And what after that? I want to know what happens after that. So please answer my question. So in this way, Yamaraj tries to dissuade him a few times, but he realizes that this is a very diligent student. So Yamaraj finally gives him the answer. But he starts answering him with this point where he says, there is something called Shreyas and Preyas. All our actions are determined either on the basis of Shreyas, that which is good for you, and Preyas, that which is pleasurable. We'll look at this further. So, as we've just seen the story of Shreyas and Preyas that comes from the Katha Upanishad, Shreyas is that which might be difficult initially but leads to a greater good, and Preyas is that might seem very easy and pleasant but doesn't lead to greater good at the end of a certain time period. So here we see the difference between the two. Shreyas is long-term good, Preyas is immediate pleasure. Shreyas is growth-oriented, Preyas is short-term gratification. Shreyas is wisdom-based choices, and Preyas is emotion-driven choices. In Shreyas, what are the parallels with psychology? We see that it talks of eudaimonic well-being, whereas in Preyas, it is about hedonistic pleasure. In Shreyas, it is delayed gratification. In Preyas, it is impulsivity. So basically, we see here that it is this ability to hold one's direct impulses and try to make a decision which leads towards a greater good. And very recently, I was looking at a particular reel, and in that, they were discussing the fact that there is a part in our brain that gets strengthened when we are making decisions that are harder for us. And the more we make these decisions that are harder for us, the more we advance towards our longevity. It's the same kind of a function that is enhanced in us when we are doing actions that promote longevity. So it's again fascinating to see that Yamaraja is talking about this as the primary step towards understanding what happens to the soul when it is after death. So how did we instruct people about the Shreyas and Preyas in our society? It's fascinating to see that we had various games that we were playing where people were subconsciously learning about the relationship between Shreyas and Preyas, and also subconsciously priming them and programming them to try and make choices that are for their greater good. So this is a famous game known as Moksha Patam. It is a template, and this was from the IKS division that we propagated, and the game has been, in a sense, revived and made into this particular format by a friend called Aman Gopal Surekhaji. So this particular game is talking about the fact that what is it in life that takes us upward and what is it that brings us down. So if you see, this game, unlike the regular game, does not begin at 1. It begins at Vaikuntha, on top there. So all of us would be stationed there, and you have to throw a 6 to come down. So when you throw a 6, you land in Moha. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Moha is this delusional attachment to things. And because there is Moha, the whole game of Sansara begins. And then you see, you keep going in different ways. You have to go up either with the help of luck of the dice, or you take certain ropes to climb high. So we have here, for example, one of the long ropes, which is the Dharma. So if you are in Dharma, you get a nice long rope and you reach to Subuddhi. And we see that just next to Subuddhi, you've got Durbuddhi, which is one of the deadliest snakes. And this is another thing which is very interesting to notice, that it is just one step away. When you're making a decision, that decision either could be made on the basis of an intelligent idea or the Shreyas concept, or that decision could be made on the basis of Preyas, which is not necessarily for our greater good. And therefore, if you take a decision that is not necessarily for your greater good, there is an immediate downfall and you come all the way to Krodha. So, through games, we were instructed civilizationally on how to make wise choices so that one can eventually, through the whole process of samsara's experiences, reach back to Vaikuntha. And this game was known as Moksha Patam. The reason why we use snakes and ropes is because at night, if our perception is not clear, in the darkness, we can mistaken one for the other, which will lead to different problems. We've seen this in the earlier case, that this represents or it's symbolic of the whole process of avidya. If we cannot differentiate the real from the false or the temporary from the permanent, then we are going to be in trouble. And therefore, the game has these snakes and ropes. And Moksha Patam is a template. This template can be then applied on various other games, on various other formats for determining what is good and what is bad for the different contexts that you function in. So moving on with Dharma Sankata, we see that there is this dharmic conflict that each one of us experiences in everyday life. For example, comfort versus discipline, approval versus authenticity, ease versus integrity, and finally, mental distress, which often reflects in repeated choice of prayas over shreyas. So, what are we choosing in our lives? Looking at the chain of causation, we see that there is prakriti of the individual, which then determines the swabhava. This leads to the choices we are making, the shreyas or the prayas, depending on our swadharma, which results in actions, and that leads to consequences. So therefore, according to the prakriti of the individual, the question is, what are you given? What is your constitutional nature? For swabhava, it is what or how do you function? What is your psychological predisposition for action? Coming to swadharma, it represents how should you act? Is your action aligned with yourself? And then when we look at shreyas and prayas, the question that we pose is how you should choose. Is your decision based on the highest dharma that you are capable of? So, when we talk of today's world, we think of, that we have the freedom to do anything that we want. But in Indian context, we see that freedom is conditional. And why is it conditional? Because from an Indic perspective, freedom is not an absolute value in itself. And freedom increases with self-knowledge in this case. It is not just my right to do what I want because of the understanding of the interconnectedness of the whole of the universe. And therefore, the idea that I will just drive in the wrong direction when everybody is coming towards me, because it's my freedom, I will take off in the opposite direction, will only lead to accidents. Therefore, there was a call on every individual to exercise their choice in a manner that was wise for their own well-being and for others. And it implies the awareness of the fact that it weakens our compulsive swabhava. So freedom was not just meant to exercise whatever is coming from within at any given circumstance, but it was about becoming conscious and applying one's choice very judicially in whatever activity one wants to undertake. Therefore, to summarize it, in the Indic context, we don't talk of freedom to do whatever I want, but rather freedom from making choices that are not right for oneself. What is the definition of true freedom? So here we say, asya hridishrita sarve ye kamaha yada pramuchyante atha martyaha amritaha bhavati atra brahma samashrute. So what is he saying here? When every desire that harbors in the heart of a man had been loosened from its moorings, then this mortal putteth on immortality. Even here he enjoyeth Brahman in the human body. In simpler words, it says that when one is able to loosen one's desire from its source and let go of one's desires, then we start connecting to the immortal part of ourselves. Therefore, it's not about succumbing to the weaknesses within, but to have the freedom to recognize that we have the choice, and that choice is to make the decision which is for our greater good. What are some of the applications here? So we see that there is a whole choice of application of shreyas and prayas in the context of career counseling, and this career counseling also depends on what is our swadharma in terms of identity exploration. Who really am I? What are the choices I should make? If one is not doing it right, then there will be burnout and moral distress. Then in terms of the life transitions, why are we moving from one big choice to another? That clarity of again trying to align with one's swadharma. Then what are some habit changes? So again, trying to follow the right path, which is meant for our greater good. And all the ideas that we've discussed today are very helpful for determining self-regulation. So if we have clarity on all these concepts, we would be in a better position to regulate our lives in a manner that will bring greater harmony, peace, and well-being for the individual and for everything around us. What is an exercise for you? I would like you to think about these questions. That is my distress due to pathology or misalignment? And where do I choose prayas or shreyas? And am I living my swadharma or someone else's? So that's the first part of it. And I would say practically how you can do it is just observe the decisions that you're making in a day and then try and see what is the basis of those decisions. Where are those decisions emanating from? And you'll get a better idea of whether it's coming from the basis of swadharma or something else, or whether it's based on shreyas or prayas, etc. So try this exercise and see what you discover about yourself. A glossary here. Some references. So some food for thought. It says that the life of the spirit is the life of shreyas, the life of permanent good. The life of the world is the life of prayers, the fleeting pleasure. To choose between them is the first step in the building of a noble character. For the one leads to the liberation of the soul, while the other binds it closer to the wheel of change. This is by Annie Besant in the work Dharma. So for these few words, I invite you to become more observant about your own swadharma. We are all in the process of doing the same. So let us try to find greater meaning in our own lives. And to close, there was also a fantastic quote by Viktor Frankl where he says that circumstance can take away from us all of our freedoms, but the last. And that is our freedom to choose our attitude in any given circumstance. And let's make that choice for our shreyas rather than our prayer. Namaste.